Obviously, I thought our guys played really hard on Saturday, and that, showed up in the run game definitively. 331 yards on the ground to hold them to 3.8 yards overall per play and just about 1 yard per rush certainly stands out. The 10 TFL, 7 sacks when it became a passing game, I thought was something that our guys from scheme to just execution showed up and did an excellent job. And that on the flip side of that, we kept our quarterback clean, which is, an important piece of us being efficient. A year ago, I think we had 8 drives that were 3 and outs or 4 and outs, and this year we had 1, and it was the opening drive. And obviously, you don't put the ball on the ground when there's guys open. We could hold on to those balls. We probably don't have any 3 and outs, which is a big swing from a year ago. So that certainly stood out to me. I thought to be 8 of 13 on third down and to hold them to 4 of 14 on third down is, again, just a phenomenal numbers. And then, we had them in situations where they had 5 different 3 and outs. And then the game, after Curtis's touchdown and another score later, that game, fell in our favor. And, I think to end up in the third and fourth quarter with 11 minutes in the time of possession, certainly limited any chance of a comeback, that they might have had. So I thought there was a lot of good things we did in there. Obviously, before half, the snap over the head and those things that are just major issues that, we got to clean up. But ultimately to come away with, to hold them to 0 points was phenomenal. So I thought a lot of really good things in there. Hats off to the O-line, tight ends, running backs, especially with all those guys that were out for the other 2 to step up and do what they did. Certainly speaks volumes of the depth in that room and just the confidence they have in each other and just overall the toughness that they're playing with. So really proud of the effort, and we're going to need a whole lot of that going into this week coming up.
You've been very complimentary of your offensive line over the last couple of weeks, but with some guys getting banged up, you've had to have a true freshman in there with Trent. How have you liked kind of what he's been able to do this early in his college career?
Yeah, he's in a really good spot. There's little mistakes in there that obviously you'll make as a freshman, but it doesn't look like he's a freshman out there. We pressed pause, in the Sunday meeting, and there was a play where Bouchon and him are both, 5 yards downfield driving their guys as Jordan Fuller's running behind them, and that's a sophomore and a freshman back there that pretty special for them to be able to do that. But, he played, pretty high level football in high school, and, he wasn't intimidated or afraid of anything. He came in here with just a great attitude, almost like willing to be a leader as a freshman, and that's just the confidence he has in his game and in himself. So really, really pleased with what he's been able to do.
And then from one Trent to another, I think we all kind of expect Trent Hendrick to have good games, but it was a career day for him over the weekend.
Yeah.
What have you liked out of him and his determination to just keep getting better?
That's what I've liked about it, is that he just wants it's never enough for him, right? Just he never says, all right, good, we played really well, let's relax a little bit here. That's not even part of who he is. Like the amount of, desire to be better and better and better every single day, but not only for himself, but to hold his teammates accountable is the thing that stands out to me. He is, he's like a coach on the field, obviously a lot more gifted than us as coaches, maybe Dobbs, but everybody else in there, physically, just to mentally and physically do what he does, just absolutely speaks volumes to the type of person and player he is. But we need a whole lot of him, and we need him to keep doing what he's doing, and so far, good start to the season.
A lot of the talk surrounding Saturday, at least offensively, had to do with the run game, and at least on our end, I feel like that's where most of the talk was. But now that you've had a few days, how would you kind of assess how Zoe performed on Saturday?
I thought he did a great job. Think about it. We were in a couple third and longs, and you weren't fully trusting the pass game just yet because of the drops. When we had 5 or 6 dropped, footballs that just, shouldn't have happened, but it did. But in crucial moments when we needed them on third downs, we were able to keep drives alive because of that. And, not because of those guys overcoming those mistakes, having the resiliency to move on to the next play. And then the same guys that dropped them were the same guys that caught them in crucial situations. And that to me just speaks volumes of their ability to move on to the next play. Don't dwell too much on the past, learn from it and move on. But I thought there was a lot of guys that did really good things in crucial moments in the pass game. And it all started with the quarterback being able to first be protected, but then secondly, when there was some pressure, get the ball out quickly and accurately, and he did that.
And I know we have the availability report coming out in just a couple days, but how optimistic are you feeling about some of those injuries in the running back room?
Very optimistic. Joby's right on the field right now. You could look out the window and see him sprinting, so I feel good about him. And then Iowa was out there earlier. I feel good about him. I think it'll just be – Iowa's was weird because it wasn't anything crazy. It was just enough on a Thursday practice that you could push it into Saturday and let it – he can go. But then is it something he's dealing with all year? Just a little bit of rest. Does he find himself in a better spot? And I think he will. They both look really good right now. Hoping to get Toner back here, this week, which could be a big help as well. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Talked about managing success on Saturday after the
Yeah.
win. Kind of curious to expand on that a little bit. What were some of the advantages or disadvantages to a blowout win and starting conference play? What was sort of your message to the team?
Well, I think it's the way we played. When you put on film, we're talking. I listen to our guys in here after the game, and every single one of them, mentioned their pre-snap thought process. Every single one of them mentioned their pre-snap keys and the things that they were anticipating the other team to do. And that, to me, just spoke volumes of the intentionality of them in meetings and practice and carrying that forward to the game. So it starts there, but then it becomes once I know what they're about to do, here's my assignment. And then it comes down to really what's my first step and how accurate and perfect is that first step. And then it becomes just a series of efforts after that. And that, regardless of the score, the way we played till the final buzzer was what was impressive to me. The effort after effort on a play. It's never just a one and done, right? There's a whole lot more that's got to come with it. And those guys just never gave up on plays. They played them to the whistle. And there was, many matchups where they were just toe-to-toe with another guy, and they just wanted to quit. I think that is important, that they just finish every single play till the whistle. And we talk a lot about it on offense. Your job is to play longer and harder than the guy with the football, right? And your job on defense is to play as hard as you possibly can till the body or the ball are on the ground. And they did that throughout the day.
We're asking about another younger guy, Emanuel Zogu, who's kind of
Yeah.
a different body type you have among the edge rushers. What does he kind of add to the defense?
I mean, he was a linebacker for us, but you see him, he's long, he's physical, he's twitchy. And at linebacker, it was just a lot of things that he had to really try to process and handle. And I thought this, he's just feels like he's shot out of a cannon every single play he's out there. And we put him in there for, really, he could play the run as well, but we've been limiting him right now in just mostly the pass game stuff. And he's just twitchy, he uses his hands, he's powerful, he's fast, he's quick, he's all those things. So, really, really impressed. He's, for the limited amount of plays he plays on Saturday, he's going to earn himself a little bit more if he continues to do what he's doing.
What's been your early impressions of Georgia State as you've started preparation for them?
I mean, look at that roster. Just look at their sizes, look at their speeds, look at their length, look at their bodies, look at all those things. I don't think it's fair to talk a lot about the teams they played. One of them is one of the best, in the group of five, and then the other two are just like juggernauts. That's who they played. So you can't. They played Memphis as tight as probably anybody did all year, and then they had their win against Murray State, where they just really did whatever they wanted to do. So I think that's hard to come off those two games. That I think they have a lot of confidence in who they are. They just didn't get a chance to really show it in those types of games against those types of offenses and defenses that they played, except for the Memphis game and the Murray State. And I thought they've done a great job. This receiver's kind of where it starts. Ted Hurst, as we know, is a really good football player, and he's going to see the ball 10 to 20 times, maybe 15 to 20 times a game. They are targeting him 15 to 20 times every single game. So we have to certainly be prepared for that. But then you go to the run game, their O-line is big, a lot of transfers in there that are big dudes from higher levels, and then you get into this running back room, and they are all 220, and they are downhill, muscled up, physical dudes that run behind that O-line. So they're not one-dimensional by any means, and then they have enough scheme to go with it, and they're coming off a bye week. So I think that's all really important for us to understand, is that, there's a little advantage that is certainly in their favor because of that. So we got to make sure we play really physically and really hard and all the things that we're supposed to do.
I know you were talking a little bit about it on the call, but how do you evaluate a team when they played two juggernauts that are, ranked top 20 in the country? Do you take anything away from those tapes? Or kind of more?
Yeah, you take something away. I just don't think that you take the final score away. You're looking into the scheme. You're looking into when they really need it. What are they doing on offense or defense? What plays stand out against that type of team? Like, to watch them go be able to sack the quarterback at both of those teams and have a bunch of TFLs and negative plays certainly stands out and tells you that their defense is capable of something. To watch them run through, linebackers at Ole Miss and run through linebackers at Vanderbilt certainly tells you something something about their run game and what they're capable of, and then watch them run by some people at the receiver position and go up and make contested catches. Regardless of the outcome of that game, those plays still exist in there. And, I think it's one of those things that it certainly highlights it maybe even a little more if you take the final score away.
Just want to circle back to the offensive side of things, just from the past 2 weeks. I know the offensive efficiency, your emphasis on the run game here and back all across. Just with the size you have up front, the running back room you have now, I feel like in year 2 this team's been able to establish that identity you've been trying to look for with that?
Yeah, again, I think each game takes on its own personality, so you just got to be careful that you say this is all we are, because that's not the case. It just so happened that, we were able to, be really efficient, get leads, and just start to move the ball, efficiently throughout those games. So that changes things a little bit, where is there a need to throw the ball all over the place at this moment? And there just wasn't. So I think every game's a little different, and I think you got to be prepared for all of it. So, yeah, do we want to play physical? Do we want to be able to – I think most teams, when you look through, who wins and who sustains winning, is they can run the ball, they can stop the run, and they usually win the turnover battle, and they play really good special teams. I think that's usually a decent recipe for it. But, again, the run can't just be the run. It has to be loosened up by the pass game, and then the pass game has to be – supported by the run game. So it's a balance in here, and you're not looking ever for a 50-50 split. You're looking for doing whatever you got to do to win a game. And I think I think we put ourselves in that position to be able to close out some games when we have had leads.
When we've talked to some of your defensive guys, they've all talked about how they really like how Coach Hitchler allows them to play a little more free and fly around to the ball. Is that something that you've noticed kind of benefit them this year with guys that were on the team last year?
Yeah, I think that this year it's it's things we've been doing for a while now, and the creativity that comes in each week's game plan. I think he does a really good job of it. But I think a lot of times it starts with, hey, we're thinking this. Is this something we could handle? Or what would when you're stuck in these situations where you're putting in something new, you're trying to figure out how would our players react to it naturally or not. So sometimes we just try to see what they feel and do, and then say, okay, well, that's how we'll make this one rule or whatever it might be for that week. But ultimately, there's things that we've repped a lot, from the spring to the summer to now that we're haven't even gotten a chance to show yet, and haven't been in that situation where we need to show it yet, that we're still excited about. But we've had a lot of reps logged in it. I think sometimes when you build a whole new defense every single week, then there is some challenges sometimes to playing freely when you're trying to get your mind on that call. So ultimately, there's still a lot we haven't unveiled yet. But ultimately, it's things when we finally do that we've done a lot of times already, right? Many times, and I think that allows those guys to play super fast.
You seem a little banged up. If there's a coach's availability report, would you be on that?
I am 100% available, but yes, I am a little banged up. This comes from hugging Jordan Fuller, so I would just not recommend tackling him if this is from hugging him after a big run. But yes, I noticed it. I didn't notice it. Coach DeMike's noticed it in a game. It was like, what happened to your eye? And I had no clue. And then obviously I think it was just like the way it hit right on this bone right here, the metal face mask. I didn't feel it at the moment, but then I think it pulled up a little bit and now is draining. But yes, thank you for your concern.
Make sure you're okay.
Yeah, I'm great.
All right. Sounds good. As you've gone through your coaching career, what's the key to keeping the momentum going from week to week? Because again, you're going to have a game, or maybe it's not your best.
Yeah.
What's the key to keeping the momentum from week to week?
Yeah, so I think to me it's about continuing to have your standards. We talked about this at the very beginning, right? We have our goals that we have in place, but ultimately we have the standards that we're going to live by every day that are going to support those goals. So that to me is then the day-to-day process, right, that's built from those standards, which supports those goals, and that's ultimately where we're at, right, is that we talked about this before the season even started. Regardless of outside expectations, we have our own, and then we build our standards for that in the process that we live every single day. And that's it, right? Just being consistent as can be, dancing with the one that brought you to this moment in time, and then constantly using each game to get better. Don't care about the outcome. When we get to Sunday, the outcome of that previous game is absolutely irrelevant because it's over. Now what lessons can you extract from it? And then how do we just continue to push forward and move forward and get better? Every single game we have to take steps in getting better. Every single game. And there's much to learn from every single game. And I think those are the best teams are the ones that extract that, take it personal, the mistakes, right? And really use that to motivate and drive you. And at the same point in time, doing it as positively as you can, understanding that once we fix these mistakes, this even leads to greater things. So that's really, what the whole process is about on a week-to-week basis. You play the game, you wash it off, and then you come back in and you do it all over again. And then you get back to Sunday, we walk in, the first thing we say is it doesn't matter, get better. That's the first thing we say in that Sunday meeting, win or lose, it's over. Right? It does not matter. Now find a way to get better. And that's what Sunday's about as we roll into Monday, and then we get back out on that field on Tuesday, and it's all go.
Obviously, you're going to show them film of Georgia State and look at what they can do well and their potential. Do you have to guard against your guys looking at the record and being 1-3 and anything like that?
No, I put on the film and look at Ted Hurst, look at these running backs, look at the defensive line, look at the linebackers, look at the DBs, look at these quarterbacks. Put on the film, there's nothing that you have to worry about in our guys overlooking anybody or feeling like this is not a formidable opponent. This is as good a team as we've played up to this point in time, right? I'd argue Ted Hurst is as good as the guy from Louisville. I would argue that. There's a slot that's really, really good. This quarterback, whatever the two that they have, or even the third guy they have, really the top two are just flick the ball like it is, they're throwing like a little Nerf football. Like they're that good. So there's nothing in there that I'm be almost concerned the other way. Just the size of these guys, the speed of these guys, the toughness of these guys, the way they play the game, is something that's just, that you can't overlook, or something that you automatically see jump out on film. They played two unbelievable teams in there, right? And the third one's really, really good as well. And then they have a lower level team in there, the Murray State game. But there's nothing you have to worry about in there.
You mentioned the quarterbacks. Talk about TJ Finley a little bit, what you've seen on film. Again, he wasn't anywhere, and then he jumps in and is starting and playing a lot. What do you see from him and Brown a little bit?
Yeah, first, they're both athletic kids. They're both big guys, and it is effortless for them to throw the football. And they know where they want to go with it. They understand how to read coverages. They get, what they understand how the offense works. And at the same point in time, if they have a one-on-one matchup, with number one, they're probably taking it. So those are the things that I think stand out. They move safeties well with their eyes. The protection is good for them. And then if it does break down, they can, use their legs and run and create, and they have some big plays on scrambles, that show up in there, which tells me that the receivers and the quarterbacks are all on the same page. So they're very, very just physically good-looking kids, and then on top of it, they are talented as can be.
Schematically on defense, are they similar to what you guys saw a year ago?
A little bit different. There's a lot more pressure from what I've seen up to this point in time. Again, they've had a bunch of minus plays, tackle for losses and sacks against really good teams. They can cover, they can run, they're sideline to sideline. There's a couple busts that they've had earlier as they're trying to figure out who's where and what players going where. There's some younger guys out there as well on the field that I think are really, good football players. So I think that, there's a ton of corner blitzes. There's a ton of, trail blitzes through the A-gap. There's a bunch of different things that they do, and they're playing man-free. They're playing, what we used to play on defense, a whole bunch of, our base, what it was a year ago. There's a lot of that shows up in there, and then each game is a little bit different. So, we're just going to have to get in that game, diagnose quickly what they're throwing at us, and be able to handle it.
Ahead of the season, you had said that you wanted to see Justin Eagland take a big step forward into this year, and then this past Saturday, they went at his direction a lot, and he handled it seemingly pretty well.
Yeah.
How have you seen him grow throughout the first couple of games?
Yeah, significantly. I think he's a really good football player, as we all know. He understands the game, and then he plays it with intentionality, and he practices that way too. Obviously, the one ball on the sideline, he was in great coverage. The kid just made a good catch. And then the one that got him early was the one that we basically ended the game on, of him making the play on that ball. So I think those are the things that stand out to me, is that he just continues to get better. His physical nature right now too, in tackling, he's taking it so seriously, and he shows up every single week on an open field tackle cut up because of just almost how perfect he is in his technique on tackling. So all those things, for him that were growth moments, he's done an unbelievable job of, and just continues to progress every single week. And he's going to have to continue to do that, because it's a big test lies ahead this weekend.
Do you see some similarities in the way your team and Georgia State are built, like just where, they're able to retain a guy like Ted Hurst, put the effort in or the investment in to do that, or they can get hometown people, you get home state people to kind of come back through the portal. Are there some similarities in kind of the strategy of building your rosters?
I don't know how to answer that, honestly, because they're I mean, that's a majority of their guys are, FBS guys that have come back. That's the majority of their team. And when you look at their, just what they're comprised of, it's probably a little bit different than us in the way that we go about it. But no right or wrong, it's just what fits for them. And I think it's the connections they have. They have, NFL coaches on that staff. Obviously, Dell was, himself a high-level football coach in the Power 4 level, and I think those are all things that just come with those connections. So it's where they feel comfortable, and I think it's I mean, as far as being in state, yes, but it overall, I don't know. I'd have to dig a little deeper into that to answer it off the top of my head.
And is it all kind of like trade secrets among coaches at this point, or do you guys discuss like, hey, this is what might work at this level, or this might work for our program versus your program, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think we talk about it a little bit, like when we're down at I saw Coach McGee at a couple, or at a clinic down in Atlanta, and we talked a little bit, and then, when we go to our thing down in Destin, Florida, where we're all hanging out down there with the whole Sun Belt Conference, there's moments where you have those conversations, but yeah, I don't think you're, I don't think you're really willing to say, here's how we run our entire program. Let me explain it to you. So yeah, that's not really necessarily how it works, but things certainly do come up for, in conversation.
Back to that moment Saturday, I maybe popped you up on the injury report, just with that hug with Fuller. I know it hasn't been an easy road for him to get back to where he is, but
yeah.
What did that moment mean to you to see him score that hug, just to kind of know what he's had to go through to get back to there? Yeah,
I think, again, just resiliency is a strong word that I would throw out there for him, just like we just talked about with a lot of guys on this team. But, he did not have the easiest path forward to here, and but just believes in himself the whole way through. And I think it's cool to see him have his moment and then be able to go out there and make the most of it. So that's pretty important. It was really cool too, because I think his parents, were sitting right in that corner of the end zone as he ran into that corner. But he'd like to have the other one, back as well, but it obviously didn't work out. But ultimately he's just a physical, tough, gritty football player that will do whatever the team needs him to do and never, ever, ever complain about it. That's what, makes you the most proud about his growth and the type of person he is.